It came that awful day, Monday, Memorial Day. The supersaturated soil high up the steep slopes of Rudd Canyon east of Farmington simply let go. The mud and muck crashed down the canyon and poured over the neighborhoods, pushing aside anything in its path. The wall of mud and debris was more devastating than anyone could have imagined. Huge boulders the size of small cars tumbled along in the thick river of mud. Solid rock pioneer homes, landmarks in Farmington for 100 years, were destroyed. Other homes were buried to the rafters. Still others simply swept off their foundations and carried downstream by the brute force of the mud flow. The owner of this home, carried 100 feet off its foundation, was one of the first to hear, then see the wall of destruction.
My wife and I heard this rumbling noise like a bunch of rocks coming down the canyon, and we looked up over our house and we could see the trees all starting to fall down like dominoes, one after the other. And I yelled to her, "Let's get out of here as fast as we can." She ran in, grabbed the baby, and screamed to the other kids to get out in the car, and they came out and got in the car, and we drove away as fast as we could. And as we did, we yelled to the neighbors, "Get out, it's coming."
The neighborhood looked as if it were located on the edge of a lava flow. Muck 20 feet high, a mile long from Rudd Canyon down 6th North to 1st East and beyond. The neighborhood that bordered so closely to the Lagoon Amusement Park was anything but a joyful, carefree sight. The next day, 2 more slides gave way along the same path. Heavy construction equipment was all that could maneuver through the streets in a seemingly hopeless effort to clear the buried roads. In all, a dozen homes had been swallowed by the mud, 25 more severely damaged. And it wasn't over in Davis County. The next day, late in the night, the hillsides in Stone Canyon east of Bountiful let loose. The first hint was when the power went out around 11 p.m. The substation had been knocked out by the tumbling mud. Then the alarm sounded through the neighborhoods.
I stood at my car. I saw the water come down just in these huge waves, just like breakers on a beach. And I saw it carrying this tree that was, like that tree over there, just this huge tree. And I just thought, oh, I got to get back in the house. I could tell I wasn't going anywhere in my car.
One home was buried in the mud, some 50 more damaged. Soupy, dirty muck spilled over the lawns, into the homes, across the streets like so much chocolate pudding left to melt in the sun. In those first few frightening days, nothing in the hillsides, it seemed, was secure. Worried officials evacuated entire neighborhoods near the slide areas and potential slide areas. The homeless went with relatives or to disaster centers, and in the confusion looked and waited for unaccounted relatives.
Your dad is sandbagging, okay? Right. We don't know where Becky's at or Angie.
We do have shelter for anybody that needs it.
Makeshift cots were trucked in, mattresses made ready, food donated and offered. At the relief centers and at town meetings, the despair welled up and out. People evacuated from their homes wondered, unsure when they would ever return.
We have been out of our house for a whole week. Doesn't look like we're going to get back in it for I don't know when. When are we going to get in? That's the culvert. You've got a culvert down here and a culvert up there, and sand. We're just in an island.
After Stone Creek, then came Barton Creek and Mill Creek. The massive mudslides were over, but the water kept coming. The backyards fronting the once delightful canyon streams were gouged out by the rushing, relentless torrent. The streets were a mess. Boulders, rocks, debris scattered over the asphalt. Roadbeds were eaten away by the currents. The community mobilized as crews of sandbaggers worked into the night after night. The melting always peaked around midnight after a daytime of hot sun in the mountains. And if the sun didn't shine, the rains came, sending fear with each pounding drop that their water-soaked hillsides could hold no more, and their waterlogged valleys were saturated beyond recovery. But even among the devastation and the hurt, there was humor, a community of people determined to pull through. One man suffered a broken leg during the Stone Creek mudslide, but during that entire terrible week, that was the only major injury. Miraculously, despite the destruction, the split-second evacuations, and the terror, no one was killed in Davis County that week. The people survived.